welcome to Suburban Home Studio, aka my basement. So tonight is the night before my first actual gig since we moved to the Nashville area. We moved out here a couple months ago. I was seeing a lot of ISO bass player type posts. I'm staying on these groups looking for people that are looking for me, basically. I see this other guy posting, I'm looking for a bass player for a 3-hour set to do a bunch of 90s and 2000s stuff. And I was like, that's right up my alley. I actually know the 90s, 2000s stuff. So now we've got this gig coming up tomorrow. It is my first gig since moving to the Nashville area. It's actually not even in Nashville. It's like an hour, I think, south of Nashville. So like a weed store thing. Party. I don't know. And we're playing a bunch of 90s music. Alright, it is the day of the gig. I've got the car loaded up. It is like 95 degrees. And my wife and daughter are sick, and I'm starting to feel a little something in the throat, so hopefully I don't die playing this outdoor show in 90 degrees feeling like not super great. I have a nice little hour, 20-something minute drive, so this is probably a good time for me to brush up on harmonies and stuff, and I will check back in once I get to the load-in. Okay, so here we are, back again, Suburban Home Studio, aka my basement. It's been well over a week since this show, and I had originally planned to do this video more immediately following the show, but I was indeed very, very sick, as were my wife and daughter, so we've just kind of been battling COVID or something like that for over a week. I'm feeling much better now. I've had some time to think about the show and process my feelings so I could give you my recap without being quite so emotional about it, because I was feeling kind of bummed and crappy when I got home that night. So basically, you know, I got to the venue. It was a head shop. We were playing on a concrete pad in the parking lot. It was 100 degrees outside. No tent, no fans, no mist spraying technology. I did not get any video of the setup, sound check, or the show because I was not feeling great. And I also couldn't find anywhere to set up a camera and plug anything in because there was one electrical outlet outside, and it was already being daisy-chained and split in all kinds of crazy ways to power a DJ setup and some food trucks. So we just set up the best that we could without having power yet. We used a Soundcraft UI digital mixer, 2 15-inch front-of-house speakers, and a subwoofer. Singer had 2 15-inch wedges, and drummer had a 15-inch wedge. Me and the guitar player used in-ear monitors. Then by the time that we finally had access to power, the sound check was about 5 minutes, during which the guitarist got levels on everybody and tried to build a mix out front while we played a song. We didn't even get through the entire song before the power went out. And you got to imagine, food trucks, speakers, sound mixing console, amps, lights, whatever. All kinds of stuff just plugged into this one breaker, and it flipped, I would say, about 7 or 8 times before the first official break of the evening. Made for a very smooth and continuous flow of energy for this show, I would say. And we were all trying to do our own mixes on phones or iPads through an app that would connect to the mixing console. And every time that it reboots, kicks you off the app. So I was completely unable to use my in-ears pretty much the entire night. So I just had to pop them out and listen to the band in open air. And, you know, all I heard was bass and drums and a little bit of lead vocal coming out of the wedges up front. I couldn't really hear anything. I eventually was able to reconnect to the app but I didn't realize that it had connected me to all these different mixes except for my mix. So I was like trying to crank vocals and they were getting cranked in the lead singer's wedge or in front of house. And I was like causing a ton of feedback. And then eventually somehow it booted me over to the drummer's wedge. So I like tried to put a little overhead and bass into my ears. And I was actually cranking overhead and bass into his monitor. And he was getting a ton of feedback from the overhead. And I'm like playing the bass and it's like, and I'm like, dude, did I break my amp? What's going on here? Why is it sounding so farty? I know I put it down kind of hard, but it should be able to handle it. It's a solid state amp. And I'm pretty sure that I just was cranked in the wedge and the metal grill on the front of it was just vibrating against the housing for the speaker and making a bunch of fart noise, which was completely unintentional. It was kind of a disaster. It was pretty funny and it kind of sucked. We also had a surprise singer / guitar player, and he was like taking requests for songs we didn't know, like James Taylor and stuff. You know, it's a 90s, 2000s cover band. I don't know any James Taylor. They requested Bad Fish by Sublime because we're at a head shop, obviously. And I know it. The drummer didn't know it, so I was like trying to talk him through how to play it and like call out pauses and stuff while I was playing the bass line, and it was just really funny and unprofessional looking, and I hope that we never have to do that again. This surprise singer-guitarist also requested that we play all the songs a half step down. Fine. Except he also wanted the songs that were naturally tuned a half step down to be played just, you know, the way they were, a half step down. Which is kind of confusing because I tune a whole step down already, and I just learned the songs in the key they're recorded in. So I don't know what's tuned a half step down and what's tuned standard. So I'm like having a guess, and I'm like start playing the first half of a song like, oh man, what key is this thing actually in? And, you know, got to a point where we played Longview, which is in the E position, but tuned a half step down. So it's an E flat because it's tuned a half step down. And that's how I was playing it as per the request of the singer. Half step down, naturally, just leave it a half step down. He apparently thought the song was tuned standard and played in the E flat position. So he thought we could tune it a half step down and play it in the E flat position. And he was playing it in D, essentially. And everybody else was playing it in E flat. And he was like, I don't know what happened for Longview, man. It sounded like I was a whole step down. And that's because you're not supposed to say, well, play everything a half step down except for the stuff that's naturally a half step down. Super convoluted, super complicated. What you should do is say, we're going to play this one in the key of D. We're going to play this one in C sharp. We're going to play this one in F. We're going to play this one in G flat, whatever. Call out the note letter name because that's a bit more universal, especially if you don't even know what the tuning of the song originally is. So that was kind of annoying and, you know, made it seem a little bit more unprofessional even. And hopefully that's another thing that we never have to do. Other than that, there was some weird spacing with, like, you know, between songs. Like, it felt like some songs had like an entire song in between them of silence, and other songs had a gap that was so short I couldn't even figure out what song was next before the count off happened. And I don't know if that had to do with, you know, technical issues that we were having, like power outages or disconnecting from wedges, causing, you know, or everybody was high because we were at a weed thing, you know, like it was just weird. So that's something that I think we're going to have to work on the next time that we get together for a rehearsal. And we could probably also settle on an input list and save a scene with our ballpark in-ear monitor mixes ready to go. So the next time we play a show or have a rehearsal, we don't have to like mess around getting levels on stuff. It's like mostly there, ready to go. But other than that, you know, it was okay. It was fine. You know, I didn't die. When we did play songs, by the time that we finished them, like, it was like, okay, that sounded pretty good. And, you know, not terrible. Could use a little work. It was a perfect first show with a bunch of issues for us to work on for the next show to make sure none of that stuff ever happens again. I guess I'll probably be following this up after the next rehearsal and the next show, and I will catch y'all later.